The MoneroTopia Guest Segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys.
So I have kind of a cool story that she would never tell you because she's a very humble person, unless you kind of drag it out of her. But we lived in the deserts of Alamosa, and there was a like a food co-op, and it was kind of the only place to get good food. But they were drowning in debt. They were way underwater. There was a lot of people trying to be in charge at the same time and all of this other stuff. And she quietly got involved. And then she created like a whole profit generating system for them. It had to do with like what are those called? The Food Bucks program or whatever. She got them enrolled in the basically. You could use food stamps at the co-op, and then you could get matching funds for any food stamp that you spent on organic vegetables. And she pulled their finances out of the gutter, got the whole thing organized again, and turned it into like a profit generating business for a food co-op. And it was absolutely thriving. And then we moved, I don't even remember how far away, but like, let's say 100 miles or whatever. And as soon as she left, the whole thing just collapsed because it just devolved back into like the social circle nightmares. But she didn't leave it there. And that's probably my favorite thing about this person is she started going all over Alaska asking other people who had solved the problem more permanently than she had what they did to keep a system that was functioning without their input. And I don't even remember the name of it. I was just her driver at the time. So I drove her to some guy's house. I think it was in like Boulder. And they were just sitting there doing like a one-on-one work group, like 12 hours a day. And I was just kind of like hanging out, getting high. But like, and she's just diligently taking notes and all of this other stuff. And the whole premise of why she went to go meet with this guy was to figure out sustainable social systems to keep it functioning after the initial injection of the kind of input that she was giving for like sustainability and profitability of the business side of things. And then like she would always be able to get the food sourced correctly and lower costs and increase the customer base and all that for these food co-ops, because that was kind of her thing at the time. But then she spent all of this time figuring out how to do social structures to prevent bad ideas from being deployed and to encourage good ideas to make it all the way to completion. And that's what I was getting at is like, this woman is such a completionist when it comes to actually making something that will last longer than she will live. So yeah, you're barking up the right tree.
Here we go. And here we go. This is fantastic. I think that sometimes these communities, like we are talking about right now, are they're disconnected in a way that wants to be disconnected. But maybe they should be connected in a way that's just great, so they're not bothering with their own rights and their own freedoms. Maybe the people should use Monero. Maybe that should be the way.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about from previous episodes, we're talking about this concept called like intentional communities or federated communities. There's a couple of different ideas of basically you design a community around an idea that you want to thrive, and you find a way for people to freely associate within the context of that idea. And the federated part is a way to chain them together to make them stronger. And then there's another idea that kind of lives within those circles of, egalitarianism. So like you end up with these groups called the Federation of Egalitarian Communities and all of this other. It's an area of research that's not for everybody, but if these ideas are resonating with you, then you should definitely check into them. But what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does work. I will tell you that. Like there are several
It
that
works.
live
We
a
we should
very
make
long.
this happen. This is real.
Yeah, I've helped a lot of now. I think you might know enough about me to know that I'm like a total hermit workaholic. So it's not like for me in the sense, but like I've done a lot of things where like I'll jump in to help people kind of get their thing going. Um, but Chloe, on the other hand, is very
Jump
much.
in. Let's jump in all the way, man.
Yeah, I love to see him happen. Like I love to see him work because that's kind of the whole idea behind voluntarism, right? Is like I want people to freely associate amongst themselves for whatever systems that they want to exist, whatever they want to believe in. I'm not anti-communism. I'm anti like non-voluntary communism. You know, if people want to share amongst themselves in a giant pool, then go for it. If people, you know, and some of them do that, some of them don't, you know, but it's really as long as it's voluntary. I've tried to jump in and help with a lot of these things, like whether
I'd
it
be
be
okay
just
with that too. If someone wants tyranny, then like that's their choice. But it is their choice, and that's what matters.
But they don't have the right to force it on me if I don't want it.
Well, one of the things that I've been trying to tell people who are like super hardcore ANCAP voluntarists is you have to focus on the voluntarist and anarchy part, because if people want to choose, like most families are structured as kind of like a communist thing, right? My stuff is my wife's stuff and my kids' stuff is my stuff and vice versa, right? Like it's what belongs to the family belongs to the family, you know? And I mean, that's pretty communisty. But the thing is I voluntarily part with everything that, you know, is the fruit of my labor for the benefit of these other people.
There's a middle ground to that, though. There's a middle ground. I mean, I know it indeed that like you say, like, okay, like the only way I could like feel fine with giving something to my brother or like, you know, someone in my family is giving someone something with no expectation to get anything back. But and because you know that they might screw you over. And that would be really harmful. That'd be like, fuck, someone fucked me over. And that ruin a whole relationship. That'd be really bad. But I think that there's like if there's a middle ground where it could be like, hey, I give to you, you give to me. This is the way we work.
Well, there's another really interesting component about Monero, though, that has UBI-like features to it. It's not a one-to-one, but the idea of mining has certain UBI functions to it that I think are absolutely brilliant. So what I mean by that is inflation of the currency supply, or in, you know, that like with Monero, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. In fact, it can be this powerful force for stabilization. It can be a powerful force for creating this equilibrium. The way that tail emission and mining work is absolutely amazing. And you could design a whole system within these egalitarian communities around the idea of, okay, we're going to have like a proof of work mining algorithm attached to our solar grid. And by virtue of living here, you get a certain percentage of the block reward as it's coming in. So the moment it comes in, whoever lived here during that block gets a certain percentage of it. And then you have to accumulate a certain total amount of Monero in order to cash out your share of the Monero or something like that. And And so it almost acts as like, by virtue of you living here and helping us, maintain the solar grid, there's like a UBI feature built into the community, and then it becomes yours. And then you can turn that around and you can say, there's a certain amount of like garden that's planted, and then there's a certain amount that's specifically yours. And the rule is you have to log this many hours into the public garden before you can log any of the equivalent hours in your private garden or whatever. But there are mechanisms for keeping people working and keeping people honest that are fair, that kind of like mesh a lot of these ideas. And what's amazing is if you keep presenting all of these ideas until you find one that everybody is willing to kind of agree on, and then you can say everything that comes from this public garden is, like the decisions are managed based on, these people's decisions who are qualified to do so. And they go to the farmers market, and that the revenue that's generated from this is used exclusively for like, importing things to the community or whatever. The reason why I bring up these ideas is, even though that's a lot of you have probably even thought about stuff like this before, but the thing that irritates me the most about people who are trying to do what dMartian is doing, but the reason why I love your approach as opposed to other people who are trying to do this is, as soon as they hit a question that they don't immediately know the answer to, they just give up. Where it's like, well, how are we going to accomplish whatever? And it's like, that's total quitter bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're telling me that you have this dream, but you have this one problem that's like going to get in your way of living your dream, it's probably not really a dream. Because when people have a goal or a dream, they will do what it takes to get to where they want to be. But I also wonder how much of this has to do with things like the public school system and stuff, where it's just cramming a bunch of can't and won't into the minds of these people. So by the time they actually find a dream, like, I want to live with people who think like me in a big community where I can freely associate and get out of the rat race and all that other stuff. And by the way, people who do this, they do actually live a high quality of life, like a high standard of living, and work way less than people who are 9-to-5ers. Like, it is a totally.
Interrupt you in any kind of way. All right, thank you. You've been saying a lot of good things, and I have one thing to say, is that I think that maybe the point is that these communities that have been living together for a long time, that maybe not everybody knows about, not everybody's aware of, maybe not even everybody has given the chance to ask themselves, to have it like have to question themselves that if they want a chance to be a part of that. These are not connected, but Monero could bring them together. They absolutely could, in ways that, like, technology. Yeah, technology. It's not been there yet, but it's here now through Monero. We could do that, right?
Oh, hell yeah, we can. I don't know if you know this, dMartian, but Faircoin, I believe, was launched in an intentional community, I think. And so they were trying to like Monerotize. I mean, this was way back in like 2014, I think. So it was right around the same time that Monero came out, was like the whole attempt at Faircoin. And the other thing is it was based on the idea of like, you inject a certain amount of labor into the economy and you're rewarded with a certain amount of Faircoin that's pegged to the labor. And ironically enough, that was the model that the Nazis used to get out of their currency crisis. And so you have people who have like their whole worldview is like completely antithetical to like most of what Nazis were all about. And yet they reach the same conclusion, which is you want to create a system that is kind of like pegged to the value of labor, because most exchanges and transactions, I don't know if it's still totally true anymore, but they were pegged to the price of labor. And most of the reason behind like the whole fiat scam is to try to devalue labor against the currency.
So is Is Chloe with us right now? Can she share your opinions? Share opinion? No, not your opinions, but her opinions on that.
I would be willing to bet she's listening. She lives at the same like lot as me, but we actually built her a house next door, so I don't know if she can get on or not.
That'd be great. I'd love to hear what she has to say about all that.
Oh, I've been saying she should be on here forever.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. She's shy. I'm not going to push her on that on any kind of way. I would love to encourage her though, with you. No, that's great. It's totally great, man. That's all I have to say. Actually, that's the end of my segment. Goodbye.
The only real thought that if anybody's listening to this and they're totally vibing with Martian, I just want to like kind of drive home the idea that there are a lot of ways to get out of like the 9-to-5 slave system, but intentional communities are highly accessible, and they are like a legitimate solution to getting out of like the 9-to-5 rat race. And there are not nearly enough of them representing like the kind of like libertarian bent or ANCAP bent voluntarism thing, as much as there should be. And you would think that those two things go together a lot better than we're seeing. So if you guys have any other questions, the listening audience, I mean, I don't even know how to tell you to get a hold of Chloe, but you probably should, because she could get you started, you know, or reach out to dMartian on Twitter and be like, I'm in, you know.
If you want in, like, there's definitely ways to get in. And I think that you could all be happier than you could be as you are right now. I think that like Doug, his whole mission, his whole family actually is gonna be great as they are, but I think that they'll be better once they start connecting.
You know, another cool thing about it is the terminally online world never gets to know people on like a really deep level. And when you go to these communities and you spend like 4 or 5 hours with a face-to-face dialogue with somebody, I mean, you walk away with what feels like a new best friend, you know. And that's one of the reasons why I wish people would make a point to attend things like MoneroTopia, is because when you get to know people who you have something in common with, and you actually get to sit with them at a table and just share a coffee and like listen to each other, it changes the way that you think about people that you would otherwise only know as some handle on the internet.
Right. And you know, it's like, imagine you're such a good person that you could create an event like MoneroTopia, just because like you love freedom and you love life, and you're just like, you love people. Imagine if you're at that level and you're doing that kind of thing like Doug has, and you're just, I think that it's just a small thing away. It's a small thing away just to get to there. It's right close to you. And we could make it happen, and we could amplify it, and we could make it happier, and we could build it, and we could make it the future. We truly can.
I don't know if you guys have noticed, like there's this, especially it's just starting in the Monero community, and it's leaving a pretty nasty taste in my mouth. This idea of like, we're going to get so much gains, right? We're going to be rich. Like, and the thing is it's this need to believe that you're on like the bleeding edge of early adoption, which very well might be true, you know, and you know, maybe Monero is going to pump to like, I don't know, 100 bajillion or whatever. But it's like, you could live that way right now. Like, you don't have to be the guy who got in early on something and, you know, 2000x your gains and now you're going to go retire somewhere. Like, all you have to do is associate with productive and creative people and build a higher standard of living amongst yourselves. But it's so much easier to just sit there and hope that you're gambling gets you gains and then buy your way into isolation than it is to learn how to work with people who think differently than you and find common ground to build something together. But I'm always the guy who tells people who start asking me about like prepper stuff, one guy with 500 guns is an excellent, defense position, but 8 guys who each have 1 gun is significantly more powerful than the one guy with 1,000 guns or whatever, because the squad-sized element is the most indomitable force in military history. It's still more flexible than a nuke. It's still more useful than an airplane. It's like 8 guys who have trained together and are working towards a common goal are unstoppable. And that's kind of the premise behind an intentional community is if you get a small group of people freely associating amongst each other for a common goal, it's effectively guaranteed success. And that's one of the reasons why COINTELPRO is such a dangerous weapon in the hands of our enemy, is because they don't have to defeat the idea. They just have to break up the unity amongst each other. And as soon as they do that, then they no longer have to fear the impossibility that it is to defeat a unified front of people on a common goal. But an intentional community kind of cuts through all of that, because you can't like seed a bunch of drama on the internet and watch the whole community fall apart, because you have to live next to that guy and you have like a face-to-face opportunity to address one another about where you're coming from. The social element of building both Monero and an intentional community, the ability to be subversive to it is completely undermined by the physical presence of one another working towards a common goal. I'm really trying not to talk a lot. I wondered if Elias is going to say something like, dMartian just gets me going though, like I just start going when he talks.
I know, man. I know. I love you, and I think that might be the end.
All right, but I can say something. Hi.
You're a little quiet. Can you raise
Please,
your volume?
yeah, please. I'd love to hear other people speak.
All right. Is this better?
It's better, but maybe a little bit more would be amazing. Just a little more volume would be great.
All right, it's as loud as it gets, I think. All right, but I've been thinking about what use cases should be good for Monero, and I'm thinking that where it really shines is I think the XMR chat is a perfect example. It's like something that's very simple, and the payments can be very small. And the thing that's so good about it is that it's so easy, and you get rid of all barriers. I don't have to create an account. I don't have to go through any hassle. And maybe I just want to use it once, and I just use it, and it's done, and it's just perfect like that. And I think there are many, many more things like that could be, you could start to use it for, but people don't think of it because it hasn't been done, because there's never been a way that's that easy and works that well. So I think it's worth to think about what more things like that could be there, like small, simple online services that where you want to perhaps just use a little thing once, and there can be a cost, but it can be really cheap, and it's as easy as just paying with a coin, like you want a newspaper, you put a coin in a machine, like it used to be. So
you're saying things that are fantastic, and I love. Thank you for speaking up. Who knew you'd say something? And the reason why is that we're all in it together. And if you think about inventions, what's like some of the best inventions that life has created for humans? Humans are known for their ability to create tools, and the first one is I don't know. First of all, maybe it might be fire. Humans created fire. Then maybe the wheel. But then next, tribes are playing next to each other, and they're creating money. The idea of money itself was phenomenal. And what you're saying is very true. It's very true. And I love it. I think we need more of people that are thinking like you. That's what I think. That's my only opinion about it.